I should go see Kai. I should stay here and work on the cure. When I let myself really think, I am torn between two places and become lost, adrift in worry, accomplishing nothing and helping no one. So I don't think, not that way. I think about plants and cures and numbers, and I sort through the data, trying to find something that will bring back the stills. Comparing the lists isn't as simple as it sounds. They don't only include names and the things that the villagers and farmers ate, but also the frequency in which the foodstuff was consumed, the type of ground they were cultivated, if there were plants or animal goods, and myriad of other information that needs to be taken into account. Just because something was eaten doesn't often mean that it provides immunity. Conversely, something eaten only once is unlikely to produce immunity. People go in and out, medics examining patients and returning on reports. Ochre and Xander doing their work, and sorters taking breaks. Lena checking in to see our progress. I become accustomed to the comings and goings, and eventually I don't even look up when I hear the one door opening, closing. I barely notice the mountain breeze slips in and rustles my hair. A woman's voice breaks my concentration. We thought of a few more things, she says. We want to make certain we include them all on our list. Of course, Rebecca says. Something about the woman's voice seems familiar. I glance up. She looks older, that her voice sounds, hair completely gray and twisted in complicated braids and knots up high on her head. She has withered skin and a gentle way of moving her hands, holding up a list of pieces of paper. Even from here I can tell it's handwritten and not printed. Anna, I say out loud. She turns to look at me. Have we met? She asks. No, I say, I'm sorry, but I've seen your village and I know Hunter and Eli. I want to see Eli, but because I've been visiting Kai and working on the cure, I haven't taken time to go looking for the farmer's new settlement. Even though I know it's not far from the main village, guilt washes over me, although I don't know why Lena and the others would let me go, even if I asked. I'm here to work on the cure. You must be Cassia, Anna says. Eli always talked about you. I am, I say. Tell Eli that Kai is here too. Has Eli told Anna about Kai? From the flash of recognition in Anna's eyes, I think Eli has. But Kai is one of the patients. I'm so very sorry, Anna says. I grip the edge of the rough-hewn table, reminding myself not to think too deeply of Kai, or I'll break down and be no good to him at all. Hunter and Eli, they're fine? They are, Anna says. I've wanted to come and see them, I begin. It's all right, Anna says. I understand. Rebecca moves slightly, and Anna takes the hint. She smiles at me. After I've finished, I'll tell Eli that you're here. He'll want to see you, and so will Hunter. Thank you, I say, not quite believing that I've met her. This is Anna, the woman who I heard about from Hunter, and whose writings I saw in the cave. When she begins reading her list, I can't tune out the sound of her voice. Mariposa lily, Anna says to Rebecca, paintbrush flower, but only used in small quantities. It could be toxic otherwise. We used to sage to season the Europera of tea. Words are as beautiful as songs, and I realized why. I knew Anna's voice. It sounds familiar and the smallest bit like my mother's. I pull a scrap of paper towards me and write down the names Anna says. My mother might already know some of them, and she would love to learn others. I will sing them back to her when I bring her the cure. It's time for you to rest for a while. Rebecca presses a piece of flatbread wrapped in cloth into my hand. The bread is warm and the smell of it makes my stomach rumble. They make their own food here. What would it be like if I had time to learn that too? And here, she says, handing me a canteen. You should eat while you visit him. She knows where I'm going, of course. As I walk down the path to the infirmary, I breathe in the forest. Wildflowers grow in all the places where people don't walk. Purple, red, and blue, and yellow. The clouds and spring stirring and startling pink soar in the sky above the trees and peaks of the mountains. And a conviction comes to me in this moment. We can find a cure. I have never felt so strongly. When I arrive, I sit down next to Kai and look at him, touch his hand. The victims of the plague don't close their eyes. I wish that they did. Kai looks flat and gray, not the colors I'm used to seeing, blue, green. But I put my hand on his forehead, feeling the smooth expanse of his skin and the unstructured of his bone. He seems hot. Could he be infected? He doesn't look good, I say to one of the medics on duty. His nutrient bag is already empty. Do they have the drip turned up too high? She checks her notes. His patients should still have one working. I don't move. It's not Kai's fault something went wrong. After a moment, she stands up and goes to get a new bag and attach his line. She seems harried. There are only 2 medics on duty. Do they need more help in here? I ask. No, she says sharply. Lena and Oker only want those of us with medical training to be working with us still. After she finishes, she sits next to Kai and I rest my hand on him, thinking of how alive he was in the hill, in the canyon, and for a moment in the mountains. And now he was gone. I think of how I spent all this time puzzling out the color of his eyes when I started to fall in love with him. I found him changeable and difficult to put into one finite set, one clear description. The doors open and I turn, expecting to see someone coming in to tell me that my time's up, that I need to return to work, and that I don't want to leave. It's strange. When I was sorting, I felt certain that it was the most important thing I could be doing. When I'm here, I know being with the still matters most. But it's not someone from the research lab, it's Anna. May I come in? Anna asks. After she washes her hands and puts on a face mask, she comes towards me. I stand up, ready to offer my chair, but she shakes her head and sits on the floor near the bed. It's strange to be looking down at her. So this is Kai, she says. He's turning on his side, and she looks into his eyes and touches his hand. Eli wants to see him. Do you think it's a good idea? I don't know. I say, it might be a good idea for Eli to come because Kai could hear more than only my voice speaking to him, calling him back. But would it be a good idea for Eli? You would know better than I. It's hard to say, but of course it's true. I only know Eli for days. She's known him for months. Eli told me that Kai's father was a traitor, Anna says. Eli didn't know his name, but he remembered that Kai told him his father learned to write in our village. Yes, I say. Do you remember him? Yes, Anna says. I won't forget him. Yes, his name was Sinna Finnow. I helped him learn to write it. Of course, he wanted to learn his wife's name first. She smiles. He traded for her whenever he could, and brought those paintbrushes even when he couldn't afford paint. I wonder if Kai could hear this. Sinnoh traded for Kai too, Anna says. What do you mean? I ask. Some of the traders used to work with rogue pilots, Anna says, and one of them flew people out of society. Sinnoh did that once. He tried to trade to get Kai out. I asked in surprise. No, she says. Sinnoh executed a trade on another's behalf to bring someone, his nephew, to the stone villages. We farmers never assisted in any of that, of course, but Sinnoh told me about it. My mind is whirling. Matthew Markingham, Patrick and Ada's son. He isn't dead. Sinnoh performed the trade with no fee because it was a family member who wanted it. It was his wife's sister. Her husband knew something was rotten in society and he wanted his child out. It was extremely delicate, dangerous trade. She looked past me, remembering Kai's father, a man I never met. What was he like, I wondered. It was impossible not to picture him as an older, more reckless version of Kai. Bright, daring, but, Anna says, Sinnoh managed it. He thought that the society would prefer world of a death, getting around to news of an escape, and he was right. Society made up a story to explain the boy's disappearance. They didn't want rumors to spread around the vanishings, as they called. They didn't want people to think they could escape. He risked a great deal for his nephew. I say, no, Anna says, he did it for his son, for Kai. So now he couldn't change who he was. He couldn't reclassify himself. but he wanted a better life for his son than he could provide. But Kai's father was a rebel, I say. He believed in the rising. And in the end, I think that he was also a realist, Anna says. He knew the chance of rebellion succeeding were slim. What he did for Kai was an insurance policy. If something went wrong and Sunoi died, then Kai would have a place in this society. He could go back to live with his aunt and uncle, and he did. I say, yes, Anna says. Kai was safe. No, I say, they sent him out to the work camps eventually. I sent him out to the work camps. But much later than they would have, she says. He likely lived longer where he was in society than he would have if he'd been trapped in the outer province. Where's that boy now? I asked Matthew Markingham. I have no idea, Anna says. I'd never met him, you understand. I only knew him from Sinoi. I knew Kai's uncle. I say, Patrick, I can't believe he would send his son out here to live where he knew nothing and no one. Parents would do strange things when they see a clear danger to their children, she says. But Patrick didn't do the same for Kai. I say angrily. I suspect, Anna says, that he wanted to honor Kai's parents' request for his child, which was he have a chance to live the outer providence, and eventually I'm sure Kai's aunt and uncle didn't want to give him up. Sending one son out would have almost killed them. And then, when nothing terrible happened for years, they would have wondered if they'd done the right thing in sending him away. Anna takes a deep breath. Hunter may have told you that I left him behind along with his daughter, my granddaughter Sarah. Yes, I say. I saw Hunter's bury Sarah. I saw the lines on her grave suddenly cross the June of wind and finger grows. Hunter never blamed me, Anna says. He knew I had to take the people across. Time was short. The ones who stayed did die. I was right about that. She looked up at me, her eyes very dark. But I blame myself, she says. Then she holds out a hand, flexing her fingers, and I think I see traces of blue marks on her skin. Or perhaps it's of veins underneath. In the dim light of the infirmary, it's hard to tell. She stands up. When's your next break? She asks. I don't know, I say. I'll try and find out and bring Eli and Hunter to see you. Anna bends down and touches Kai's shoulder. And you, she says. After she leaves, I lean down to Kai. Did you hear all that? I ask him. Did you hear how much your parents loved you? He doesn't answer. And I love you, I tell him. We're all still looking for your cure. He doesn't stir, and I tell him poems and tell him that I love him. Over and over again. As I watch, I think the liquid dripping into his vein helps. There is a warming to his face, like sun and stone, when the light comes up.